Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to Planet Zoo episode 2 of the Beginner's Guide Let's Play series. And we're just having a little look at our Nile monitors that we put in last time, and that one on the left of the stream is doing some interesting manoeuvres to get into the water there. It's maybe a little bit steep on the bank for them. But yeah, they seem to be doing quite well. I do love spending some time watching the animals in this game. It can be very, very enjoyable indeed. But what I'm really hoping is that some of them will get jiggy with it pretty soon and get us some baby Nile monitors, because if we get that in, then it means we can start increasing the zoo price and making even more money. So if we want to check if one of them's pregnant, there's a couple of ways to do that. We can either click on the barrier of the habitat here, and we go to the animals tab, and then you would see a symbol next to one of their names if they were expecting offspring. So we want to keep our eyes on that. The other way to do it is to go into your zoo tab, on the animal tab, and then you can see here as well they'll have exactly the same symbol next to their names here if indeed they are pregnant, and you'll get a notification when a mating event is about to occur as well, so you can go and watch if you want to. So our vet did complete the research on the Nile monitors in the last episode whilst I was detailing. So what that does mean is we can now increase the food quality for the Nile monitors. Now this is why, again, a reason why I choose these as one of the first animals, because their food cost is relatively low. If you put in a lion, this is in the thousands. So just be aware of that. But you see, there's not that much difference between grade 1 and grade 3, so let's give them the best quality food. And then hopefully we should see if we click on one of these animals. Let's get up their tab. When it comes to nutrition, last meal quality, yeah, this is now 100%, but that will go up and get better, obviously, as you increase that food quality there. Now as well, you want to keep your eyes on this, so make sure they've got available water. So it might be that maybe they can't drink from an open water source and you do need to put in that water pipe. You'll be able to see that here. And they haven't got any available food at the moment because the keeper is going around cleaning up poo, I think I saw. So I'm sure they'll come and fix it in a second. But if for some reason you do need to call a keeper, again, you can just click on the food plate or any of the food enrichment items as well, and just say there's a keeper sign, but let's call him urgently. Let's try and see if we can get him to fill this up. Now if we call him, he doesn't always go to the item we've selected, so it might be that he'll go and fill up one of the food enrichment items instead of the food plate, but yeah, it's kind of hit and miss. At least he will feed the Nile monitors in this case. So let's just go ahead and give our Nile monitors some names. And you guys had some really great suggestions in the comments. Thank you so much for all of them that came in. There are quite a few, and obviously I'm hoping that we are going to get babies, so I think we will save some of them for the baby Nile monitors, but for now let's go ahead and call some of these by name. So let's take actually the male Nile monitor. I'm just going to call him Nigel, which was a suggestion by Doodle Plays. Thank you so much for your suggestion there. Yeah, just why not, hey? Nigel the Nile monitor, I like that. Then we had some other suggestions. Now most of these are kind of male names, but we're going to go for it. So Malika, you are going to be changed to Lizard Nardo da Vinci, which was a suggestion by ER. Thank you so much for that. I really like that. And then we want to find our third Nile. Oh look, see, the keeper has now fed them. That is great news. So let's have a look at our third Nile monitor. And I'm going to call this one River, which was one of the suggestions by Brad Stanton. Thank you so much for that. Obviously, River Nile. We'll go for that. So we have got River, Lizard Nardo da Vinci, and Nigel currently in our enclosure. And we'll just keep our eyes out to see if we can get any offspring from them pretty soon. Now, the other name that I did want to give actually was to our mechanic, and I don't know how I didn't think of this. For anyone who follows my City Skylines episode series, all of my City Skylines builds, you'll know I'm absolutely in love with a mod called Bob. So we're actually going to go ahead and name our mechanic Bob, and I can't see where he is, so let's go ahead and just find him like this. Now he is called Johnny Rowell at the moment. It's not going to be that anymore. He's Bob. So we have got Bob the mechanic, who's going to gradually fix up our zoo and make it all nice. Thank you, Bob. And that was a great suggestion from Edward Bickford. Thank you so much for that. Really love that. And so we'll save some of the other Nile monitor names for when they have got babies, but I think that's all the naming we'll do for now. Now the zoo name you were a little bit torn on. So some of you did suggest FewCandy instead of FewZoo, because that rolls off the tongue better, which it absolutely does. But then I feel like because we're naming a zoo, it's not Zoo London, it's London Zoo. So I think for now we'll stick with FewZoo. But we'll see what other suggestions come in. If there's something that tickles my fancy, we might change it. Now the other thing I want to talk about just before we start today is research. So we have already had the vet fully research the Nile monitors, so as soon as you've got in an animal, get your vet right onto that, because you really want the enrichment items and all of the knowledge about their health for if they get sick or anything like that researched ASAP. So good that we have got that done. But now the vet is free to research some of these other diseases. Now honestly, it's kind of, you could go for any of these. Some of them are very specific, so monkeypox, we don't really need that now because that will be specific to monkeys. But there are some others which are kind of more general. Tetanus is one of them, so I'm just going to put them on tetanus for now. Obviously, if you do have a sick animal, make note of what it is that they have got and then try and research that as quickly as possible, and this will just make sure that your animals stay happy. And now, while the vet is researching, if an animal does get sick, they will come out of the research centre, and the other way to do that as well is to call a vet if you need to, and they will automatically come out of the research centre. You can see them going in now over there and come and deal with that, so they will pause the research when they do that. And at any point you can remove them from the research lab, just click that button there and it will just pause. So everything that's already done will be just paused in progress, so you don't need to worry about losing any of your progress. Now on mechanics, I have already set, oh Bob, up to start researching the aquatic theme, because in all of the themes, now this has come from one of the DLCs I would add, but all of the themes, the first level is all of the scenery items, so that's really what the way I play, want to get to. If you want to start getting some of the blueprints, so there are various different items, like for example with this there's a lighthouse, there's various different exhibit examples, there's various different habitat blueprints as well that you can use, so you could literally just drop almost a ready-made habitat, or certainly large pieces of scenery with lots of props put together, ready-made for you into your zoo if you want to build like that. If you really want to be creative, then you kind of just want the scenery element, which is what I'm going for here. And on the last episode he did research the staff facility, so we have already unlocked the large staff room, which is really what I wanted to get at this stage. But we don't need to put it in yet. So with your mechanic, you really want to keep an eye on your notifications that come up here. If one of your vending machines breaks down, you need to press this to get him to come out of the workshop, otherwise he will just sit in the workshop and carry on with his research and it'll just stay broken, which is what happened to me in the detailing time lapse last time, which is available to YouTube members and patrons, I would add. And same goes for your barriers as well, because they do depreciate over time, so you can see this is on 68%. It's still in the green at the moment, but if this gets down to orange or even red, well, you don't want it to get to red. If it gets down to orange, you're probably going to want to request your mechanic comes out. So that's where it is useful to have multiple mechanics. I mean, I want to build up a bit more money first and be a bit more financially stable before we do that. But if you have multiple mechanics, you can set one to research and then not worry about having to call him out, because the other one will be free to move around and repair the barriers and the vending machines and anything else that needs repair as it goes. So yeah, on the research you may see a lot less than this, and this is because I do have all of the different DLCs. If you're interested in picking up any of the DLCs, please do consider going to check out my Instant Gaming affiliate link. If you purchase via my link, it will help to support the channel, and there are some seriously great discounted prices on there. And really worthwhile if you're looking to save some money. Okay, so the first thing we're going to come onto today is looking at a few more advanced building and path work techniques. So we're going to build out our entrance and a little food court for our guests, because we've got quite a bit of money right now. So let's go to the end of the path where our kind of main entranceway is going to sit, or a makeshift entranceway at least. So the first thing I do want to do is I'm going to use 2 information booths as kind of this entranceway to look like ticket offices essentially. Now regardless of whether you are going to create your own zoo entrance, information booths are really useful to have by the front of your zoo, because when you look at what they sell, so if we go into this, we look at prices, they sell audio guides, adoption packs, but importantly that audio guide is really what you want to sell right at the front of the zoo, because guests will be keen to pick that up right here. Okay, so anyway, let's move this. So let's click on the building and we're going to go to move here. Of course, you can just hit M on your keyboard as well in order to do that. Now you'll notice it's still within the grid that we used when we placed it down here. So what I want to do is click exit group, because I want this really nicely lined up with our entrance here. So I don't really want it like that. So we're going to go exit group, and then what I am going to do here, we want this in the middle of this path. Now you can use some bits of wall to kind of align this properly, which is sometimes a good idea. So let's actually do that. We'll do this properly. Okay, so we're going to use this 2x2 panel. We've got angle snap on importantly, so we know that this is all snapped to the angle of the zoo, so that's quite useful. for when we come to do that. And we're just going to line this up to the edge of the path like this, either side. Because then we know we've got a 4-metre gap in the middle of it. So let's go back to the information booth. Sorry, customers, we're going to move you. And we're going to exit the group that we're building on so that we've got completely free roam of where to place this. Hit Z on the keyboard to turn it round, and then we are going to place it right in the middle of these 2 breeze blocks here. Now, it can be somewhat tricky to line up, but we're just going to eyeball it, so that'll be absolutely fine. Now, I'm going to add in 2 information booths here because I want 2 with walkways around either side, so it's like you kind of come up to the main ticket booths and then you can walk through on into the zoo. So let's go to guest facilities. We'll go to information. Again, I'm going to turn off blueprints here so we're just not seeing them. And we'll get another information centre. Now, I actually don't want this one placed here. So I'm going to move it again in a second. But we'll place this one here, and we know we're snapping into this grid now, so it should be nicely aligned to the path. I'll just right click with my mouse to get rid of that. And then we'll click this information booth. We'll hit move again. Sorry, customers again. And I'm going to place it in here. Now, if we come out of this group for a second, let's just delete out these. We can either hit delete on the button there or hit delete on our keyboard, and that'll get rid of it. Anything that you do delete, by the way, you get a full refund for in Planet Zoo, so don't worry about deleting stuff and rebuilding. You'll get a full refund for it. So let's just come on to some more advanced pathing techniques. Now, what I want to do is create a really nice kind of plaza around this and want everything perfectly lined up. And as you know, you've probably had to play around with the paths by now, and they can be pretty tricky to manage. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this align to grid function. So let's go on to this information booth. I'm going to click in front of it, and then I'm going to click with angle snap, perfect 90-degree angle to the side. Now from here, I can use this align to grid function. So let's select that, and then we're going to click on these 2 bits of path because they're nicely aligned up now. And because they're the same size as well, it means they form a grid. Now with grids, you get this extra option of square edges. So if I just leave that unticked for a second, you'll see. So what we're doing now is we're adding path in to this perfect grid around it. And you're not limited to that square and add, you can keep going as long as you want, I think, actually. But we'll just bring it around like this. And what it does is create a nice plaza area. If we click square edges, if I now delete out that corner and add it back in, you'll see that is a nice square edge around there. So that's actually what we want to do here, because I want a nice square plaza. Now I'm going to deselect the grid to get away from that. And we need to connect in the main path here. So I know this is a width of 8, so let's make sure we've got that selected. Don't want delete path anymore. I'm going to come off the end here. Now, this is going to prove pretty tricky because this staff path is so close to it, and the toilets here actually. So let's actually just delete this out, and then we're going to come off from here. Now you can see I want it to go straight in, and I'm not really getting the perfect angle with this. So if I hold Z on my keyboard, what that does is allow us to move it around a little bit better. It gives us a bit more flexibility in terms of the angle that we're coming off here. Let's try and get out of the tree as well. Now I have still got angle snap on. I'm actually going to turn this off, because what I want is to get this in really nice and straight here. We need to come back a little bit further so that we can see this corner. But there we go. See, that's starting to look better. And you can kind of tell from those angles on the side of the square plaza area as well how in the middle it is. But that looks pretty good to me. So that Z function is super useful. So like here, if I hold Z, I can literally pick what angle it comes out at. And again, I'm just, dragging over with my mouse. I'm not clicking anything, just dragging over with Z held on the keyboard, and that gives us different angles out for paths. So we will use that quite a lot. Now again here, what I do want is another path that is going to come straight out of the back of here, nicely aligned. So I'm going to go in and use my construction pieces again. And what I want, so this is now 20 meters wide, and I want a width of 8. So I'm going to need 6 on either side to block off. So again, let's make sure angle snap's turned on. And we'll just spin this round, and we're going to align this up to the path as best we can here. And in fact, actually, just think about it, one easier way to do this is we're going to select this group, because we know this is on the grid. And this will just snap into the grid nice and easily. So that's for that side. If we make the grid 2 meters wide, like we did for the roof on the toilets, instead of it snapping into the next 4 meter slot, we can snap it into a 2 meter slot there. And then what we're left with is 8 meters in the middle for our path. So it gives us a bit of a guideline for where the center is. We'll eyeball that into the middle and then we'll just bring this out straight. Now I do want angle snap back on for this. And we'll bring it out nice and straight, a little way actually, just give us a bit of breathing room for what I want to do this side. Now the next little pathing technique I want to talk about is how to make these into nice curved corners. So if we just make this a width of 4 for now, what I'm going to do is when I just drag over this corner, you'll see it kind of creates a little divot in the corner. You can play around with the widths of this, so we could do a 6 one, and that actually fits in relatively nicely like that. So if I click it in there, and then I right click to delete it, you'll see we get a bend on our path away from our grid. So that's a really, really handy tool as well to keep kind of getting your paths flowing around and avoiding some of the really sharp corners that you do get sometimes. So again, I'm going to do it this side, and this is very much hit and miss. The pathing techniques in Planet Zoo can be a real ball ache, I won't lie. So it really is hit and miss, and you just have to have a play around with it. See, if I put this in like that, it doesn't look anything like the other side. But we'll get rid of it, and actually I think I've lucked out there. It's not perfectly symmetrical, but that's good enough for me. With a bit of detailing around it, no one's ever going to notice that. You'll come down here and yeah, it's not perfect, but it will do. And we're going to do exactly the same thing out here. So I have one that snaps in like that, and then right click to get rid of it. We get our nice curve on it, and then exactly the same thing the other side. So it's not really snapping in anywhere particularly great. Let's just do it there. We'll get rid of that, and then we've got a similar curve here. And I would add, can carry on with this, so we could go back to this side if we wanted to try and make this a bit more symmetrical. We could come back to this side, put another piece in, right click to get it away, and it will change the shape of it slightly. So it's sort of getting there, but I think once we've put some rocks and foliage around the edge of this, you won't notice that that's not super symmetrical. But that is really how to do it. Now, in terms of this entranceway, what I want to do is kind of mirror what we did on the toilet block there. So I'm going to go back into construction. We're going to find our metal wall pieces. And I'm just going to go ahead and we'll get the 4 meter ones because they match these buildings here. We'll select group, and I'm going to go ahead and add in a box around both of these. And then what we want is this shot front piece for the front of it. So we can go ahead and place those in like that. Now in terms of the archways through, if we go to the arches tab here, we do also have a couple of different options. So we could do a big metal plank archway like this, but it's very boxy. And what I want to do is show you some more advanced detailing techniques. So I'm actually just going to put in these little archways here. And again, you want to make sure you'll see that you're snapping to the same side of your grid that you are with your walls as well. Otherwise you'll have little wonky bits like that. I mean, it might be part of your design as well, so get creative with it. But for what we want, we just want to do it like this. And I'm actually going to box these in on the sides because we're going to have this quite open for the design that I want. So I'm just going to go ahead and put on the concrete flat roof and the top bit exactly like our toilet block. So there we go. Now I do want to add extra details into this, and one thing that's quite nice to do, if we have a little look at the wall pieces, this wooden wall, oh, we have got the aquatic pieces. That is super exciting. Let's change him over to the Africa theme because I want to start getting the Africa themed scenery as well, so we'll just do that. Oh, let's see what's broken down. No, that's fine. So let's go back into construction pieces. Now these wooden walls that we see here are really nice, like panelled wooden walls. So let's again select to add it to our group. We'll hit Z to turn it around. And what we can do here is we can kind of layer them in. And you'll see this makes a little bracket on the side, but I quite like that where that sticks out. So we're going to put these in as little panels all the way around these edges here. So again, we'll just flip this round. You could have it really sunk into the wall like that, or out like so. And again, we'll do this over here. So just like that. Now, if we do put these on these other ends, you'll see it kind of sticks out, that like bracket sticks out, and I want the guests to be able to see the nice flat bits of wool. So instead of that, we're going to search for plank in our construction menu, and we get these wooden planks here, which are all part of this wooden plank set, so it's the same type of wood. Now we want the 4 metre one because we know this is a 4 metre tall building. We are going to say align to surface, and then what I'm going to do is align it here, and I know that that is now lined up with the grid. So if I just click it, and then we'll press escape to exit away. Now this is more advanced movement techniques. So if you hit X on your keyboard, or you do this advanced move and rotate button here, what you do is you start to get some different controls. If we hit it again, we start to get this rotation function. So that's what I want to do here. I definitely want angle snap on because I know that this is a perfect 90-degree angle because we snapped it to the surface. And we're going to flip it round like this. And then I'm going to choose this axis here just to flip it round like this so that it's mirroring this wall here. Now I'm going to hit X again, and we'll go back to the lateral movements rather than rotational. And I'm just going to drag this into place here. So what I want to do is kind of make it look like this, but without the added beam on it. Now as well, because we snapped it onto the sides, we don't need to go up or down. I think it's joining to the wall and joining into the ceiling, so we should be absolutely fine there, but you might have to check that. So then let's hit build by, the tick there, and then clicking on the item, you can then go to duplicate and advanced move. Now this is like the most useful thing for building in the whole game. Or you can hit Control X on your keyboard as the shortcut. And what that does is duplicate the piece and moves you straight into advanced move here. So let's just drag this across, and you can see what we're doing here. So we're now creating like the little gaps. I just want to see, we're going to have to eyeball this. I'm going to see kind of how big it is. And it's probably more like that. So that looks all right to me. We'll hit tick, and then we're just going to continue with this. And what this is doing is moving this piece in exactly the same positions along all of these axes, and because we've snapped it into everything, it will work out perfectly for us. If you haven't got those angle snaps on, it will be a little bit more tricky. Now I can see this board at this end is sunk in slightly more than this one, so I'm going to edit this as a perfectionist. I'm going to click all the pieces whilst holding shift on my keyboard, and that selects all of these bits of wood. I'm then going to hit X again, or select this button, and that brings us into advanced move with the whole lot. So what I'm going to do is just shift this over a little bit until we can kind of eyeball it. Looks like it's in the middle a bit better. So to me, that looks good. So we'll click tick there. And now what I do want to do as well is actually duplicate and advanced move this. Now we know we've got this all lined up and this building is all snapped into one grid. Let's hit Control X. And then what we're going to do is just pull it all the way across to the other side, and we'll have to kind of eyeball it into the middle of these pillars. So that actually looks okay for me. We'll click tick, and then we'll click escape. And there we go. So we have got some nice kind of wooden panels now featuring in our entranceway. So this is a little taste of the type of tips I'm going to give you throughout this series in terms of how you can make your buildings a little bit more interesting. We're just starting off relatively basic, but good to get into those advanced controls and X early on, because honestly they're just so super useful. And we're going to do it exactly the same again here. So to create some nice awnings for the fronts of these, what I'm going to call ticket booths, I'm going to search for beams in here, and we have this Planet Zoo beam round 2 meters. So let's tick on that, and you can see all these construction pieces don't cost huge amounts of money, so you can do quite a bit of detailing relatively early on. So we want to select to add it to the group, yes, so I'll just left click with my mouse and then we're adding it on here. Now what I want to do is create a nice little awning out of this. So I'm going to leave 2 gaps within the metal. This is why this metal cladding is quite useful. We can leave 2 gaps so we can eyeball this. I don't want position snap, it keeps snapping in, but we do want a line to surface. So you'll see wherever we move it, it's going to align to that surface. You can even get it here if you wanted to. We're going to leave 2 gaps. We're going to go up to about that height is nice. I'm going to try and centre that beam in the middle of this gap as well. Just like that. So you could go along and you could eyeball this and put this in, but they're going to be slightly out of sync. So again, what we're going to do is click on that. We're going to click Control X or the duplicate and advanced move. And then we're just going to start dragging it across. So now we could do this leaving 1 gap in between. Let's have a little look at how that looks. So there we go, that is that. Now I do want to put a little beam on the end to finish this off. So again, if I just click this, we've got a line to surface. It's clicking this nicely into the side here. Now instead of left clicking my mouse, I'm going to hit X straight away. So we go into advanced move. Now we're snapped in to that perfect right angle there. And then what I am going to do is just drag this across because it's slightly wider than these beams' width. So we can make sure we can kind of eyeball that we've got the same width either end. So like that, and I don't mind the beam sticking out at the front. I think that looks quite cute. And then again, I'm going to click Control X and we're going to advance move the whole lot over to here. Now, if you'll remember, we did count 2 spaces in the metal gap there, so I'm going to do the same this side. Make sure it's nicely positioned in the middle of those gaps. Click tick. And we've got 2 awnings, identical and of the same height. So yeah, there we go. That's a good way to use X. Now the other thing briefly to talk about is some of the props. So we do have in art shapes, we have lettering. Now I do want to put the zoo name up here because I think that's a nice touch. There's various different sizes of lettering and that sort of thing, so you can have a play around with this. There's only really 2 fonts, I think, in the main game, so there's not a huge amount to choose from, but you can colour them in any colour you want. And yeah, it's fun, it's fun. I'll use these letters quite a lot as we go through the zoo. There we go. We've got our signage in there. Okay, so I was just checking our mechanic research who has now completed the Africa themed scenery research. So I've moved him onto conservation and a notification came up that we had a Nile monitor expecting offspring. So let's have a little look at what's going on here. So we see, if we go into the animal tabs, we can see Lizardnado da Vinci is pregnant. That is super exciting. So we're going to have baby Nile monitors soon. We're going to have to check again the terrain constraints when we come to do that, like whether they've got enough space and the such like. But yeah, we should be absolutely fine. So we just click on him. We've got room on both of them, I think, for enough babies. We will see. I'm hoping that they don't have 10 babies in one go, because that could prove a little bit troublesome. Okay, now we've had a vending machine break down again, so I have just requested that the mechanic come and fix this. So he should be, yeah, here he comes. I think this is Bob to the rescue. Come on, Bob, let's be having you. And he's going to fix our vending machine for us, and then he'll get right back to his research. And actually, do you know what, while we're at it, just seen this barrier, and yeah, that's gone down again, so let's again request him there. I have got pretty much an entire plan of how I want this zoo to go and how I want it to flow and where I want enclosures, because that's how I operate. And I'll tell you what, I will flash it up on screen quickly now. So it's pretty rough, but really the reason why I've done this is you'll see the black line flowing all the way around it is going to be a train line or a transport ride, which we haven't researched yet, but we will in future. So I want to make sure that at my entranceway I am leaving space for that. But let's get back to this. So I definitely want my transport ride in over here. So what I'm actually going to do is start creating a path, and I'm going to use paths of 8 meters wide for pretty much most of the sort of standard walking elements of my zoo. And the reason for that is it's quite a nice width for keeping a steady flow of people. If you see down here, it's decent enough. It's not too wide, but it's not too skinny at the same time. So it works nicely from my point of view. So yeah, what we will do is just bring this path. I'm going to do it straight like this because this is where the main station's going to sit. We're going to have a gift shop here. We're going to have a big food and drinks court over this side, which we'll probably start doing potentially in the next episode as well, and looking at a few more different design and building techniques that you can use within that. So we'll just bring that path out down like that for now. And then looking at this path, what I'm actually going to do, so we want that kind of space to have our food and drinks court, so it's going to be fairly large. So I'll bring it out one more section, and then we're going to start going a little bit more curvy with it. So we'll bring it up over here like this. So the animal that I'm actually going to put in here is the black-tailed prairie dog. Now this comes with the North American Animals Pack DLC, but obviously please feel free to pick any animal that you so choose. I'm choosing quite a small animal for this area because I don't want anything too large over here. This is kind of the first animal that people will see when they get to the zoo, so I don't want massive amounts of crowds gathering over this side. And they're, again, really good price for a really decent attractiveness. So it's not going to break the bank. They really don't cost much in food because they're absolutely tiny and they're kind of fun to watch. So if we just go to the Zoopedia, so we'll click on one of these, we'll go to Zoopedia, and that'll open the animal up here. Let's have a little look at the details about them. So we can have 1 male and up to 11 females, and they have 2 to 4 offspring per mating event, but they do only die at 7 years old, so they don't live very long at all. So that's something we want to be mindful of. So yeah, looking back in the animal market, they're all of a decent age actually, so they're not too bad. So we look at our males we've got here, this one's definitely better, so I'm totally willing to spend 16 conservation credits getting him. Then we have a little look at females. She's got terrible longevity. I think meaning she's not going to live very long. So she is probably a better choice as she's cash anyway. So yeah, let's definitely go ahead and adopt her. Let's refresh the list to see what other females we get. Now they're both conservation credits now, which is not ideal. That one is terrible. We really don't want that one. But we could get, who is this? Pampahas? Yeah, we could get Pampahas. We'll adopt you for 7 conservation credits. And then again, let's refresh on this list. See, we've got another one for cash now. Now this one's terrible, but I think what we'll do is adopt it. Now we need to remember Kateri, because what we're going to do is put contraceptives on her to make sure she's not breeding, because we don't really want these stats being bred, to be honest. Because they're still in animal storage, we can't yet do it here, but we can do it as soon as we move them into the zoo. So I think we'll just start off with 1 male and 3 females, which is absolutely fine. They only need a minimum of 2, so that'll be good to get them going. Now, in terms of space, we have a little look, so that's 216. Say we did have 12 adults in here. We're only talking about 300 metres. They don't need any water or anything like that. Let's put in a whole load of babies, let's just say. You see, it doesn't add up much to it because they're such a small animal. So we really can have a pretty small habitat over here. So that is what we are going to do. So how I'd like this habitat designed is I'd like the edges to be lowered so that the barriers aren't too high, because if we go back into here we can have a little look. They need 1.2 metres and 1 metre, as we know if we go and have a look at the Nile monitors, is already too high for children to look over. If we got a child here anywhere, we don't get, yeah, see look, this child, if we go into their first person point of view by clicking on them and going guest camera and do first person, look, that's the view that they have of the Nile monitors, and that's only at 1 metre. So what we really want to do is make sure we've got a lower barrier so that kids can see nicely over it. Or of course you could use a glass barrier, in which case they can see it all anyway, so really that's up to you, but I'd just like to show you this technique so that you know how to do it, and it does create much nicer looking, more natural, realistic habitats. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get a construction piece, just any piece of wall. So we're going to use a 4x4 concrete wall, and I want to make sure I'm leaving enough space for a viewing platform here, which is really what I want. So that should be absolutely fine there. And then what we're going to do, we need vertical snap on, like that. We are going to just sink this into the ground a little bit. So that should go down 1 metre, that's 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so what we want is just 1 metre snap down like that. And then what that means is that we actually only need a very, very small barrier over the top in order to keep these animals in. So then next to this, and the reason why I do this before putting in the path is it's very hard to do terrain conforming once you put a path in, I would add. So this is why I would recommend doing it in this order first and making sure you've got enough room for the pathway that you want there. And then terrain tools, we're going to get pushed, and we're just going to very gently, just single clicks, push this down until it's almost at the bottom of this wall. So you might have to zoom in a little bit to see. I think if we click on the wall we can see, yeah, the bottom is right there, so that will do absolutely nicely. And then I'm going to get a flattened foundation tool, and I'm going to click right from here, and we're going to drag this out. So you can see what this is doing is essentially making the terrain the same height as the bottom of this wall, which we know is 1 metre down from where the standard path is. So I'm going to draw this. Again, we'll just click there so we make sure we're getting the right height. I'm literally going to draw this all the way around where I want my habitat to form. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to add a little path around here so that we know what we're dealing with. I'll just delete this piece of wall out for now. So with the path, what I want to do is have a nice raised viewing area, and I'm going to go back to a width of, I might actually go for 5 for this. If we get the path on the ground, we'll have to hit control to keep it away from that path. So I'm holding control on my keyboard now. And if I hold shift as well and just move my mouse button up, it slowly starts to raise it. So you'll see it's kind of snapping up in height. So I really only want this to snap up one, like this. So now if I let go of shift, you can see we're at that height and I'm just holding control so we're not snapping to that path and snapping back. Then what I want to do is run this path part way around where we have made the terrain lower here. And so yeah, we're just going to draw this round here. So I think we'll come around to here, and then what we're going to do is essentially join it back up to the main path at that point. And then we'll do the same thing round this side. So again, we're just following over where that terrain is sunk, because we can put it on the ground like this, but no one wants to walk on a path like this. So that starts to give us quite a nice shape. And then what we can do is join it up in various places onto our main path. So we've got little steps there, that's okay. And that's because we're quite close to this main path. Obviously where we're further away, it's going to be dipping down a little bit more. But I'm fine with there being steps. And actually in the interest of using our techniques, I do want to just smooth out some of these corners. So let's go ahead and make that a lot more rounded, and definitely here as well, so it's a nice flowy path out round the outside of this habitat. And now, so right round here, I want this to be slightly different, so we are going to leave this on the ground. I'm back to a width of 8. I want to go back to, I will do a width of 5, and we're just going to follow some of this around the outside here. Because we'll have a little extra section of barrier here. It'll be slightly different end to the habitat, to the kind of viewing platform overview bit at this end. But what we do want to do is follow this around again so that people, if they're not viewing the prairie dogs, have got another access way to walk around. So it feels all very interconnected, but realistically what we're saying is come down here if you want to see the prairie dogs, keep on the outside if you want to flow around the rest of the zoo, and then we'll have lots of nice detailing in these little green bits in between. And you'll see sometimes the path is just too close to join like that, so you kind of have to find where it works and use those patches. So that's far too close. So we could move it out and make it further away, but I'm fine with that actually. There's enough pathing access points to get onto that viewing platform there. So with raised paths, if I click on here to join the piece of path, I left click with my mouse and drag downwards. That will drive it down towards the ground. You can also press U to raise it up and J to raise it down. So that's the keyboard shortcuts for this. And there are other techniques for raised pathways, which we will go over in a future episode. Okay, so now let's talk about our barriers here. So I am actually going to just start off with the same barrier that we used previously, which is the wooden barrier. And what I'm going to do is start putting this in around our edges. Now I'm going to make this a smaller length, so we'll actually go for a 4 wide barrier, and we're going to start placing it in all the way around this habitat. Overall, that's not looking too bad for the moment. Okay, so now for this section, what I'm going to do is use a null barrier. So we're going to add it on here, and then I'm going to select null. And what this is essentially an invisible barrier. So it just means it gives an edge to the habitat, but what we need to do is use other means to form the barrier instead of using the actual barriers. So it could be rocks, it could be a terrain change height which they can't climb up or climb over. It could be a number of different things, and we'll go over all of these as this series progresses. But for here, what we're going to be using is some construction wall pieces to block off this edge. So I'm going to use breeze blocks for this, which I think is always quite nice for habitats. And we're going to want to use panel pieces because they're a little bit more versatile and smaller than the main wall pieces as well. So this is a 2x2, so I know that this is 2 meters high. I'm going to turn angle snap off for this as well because we need to follow this path round. Now, I think what I will do here actually is just add in a little rock. So let's just check. They are grassland and desert. So I think we will use desert rocks for here as well. So we'll get our desert rocks, and let's find a nice, reasonably small one just to block this off with. In fact, we could go for a large one because then they definitely can't climb out over it. We'll just place that in like that for now. Now it is covering up some of the path. We'll probably move that round in a second, but at least that gives us a start point for here. Yeah, let's go back into construction again. We're going to find our pre-spot wall panel 2x2, and what we're going to do is on free move. I think is the easiest thing for this rather than advanced move, but obviously if you've got straight lines, advanced move might be an awful lot easier. But what we're going to do is line it up to the edge of our path curve there and just create our own wall underneath the path, because then what it gives us is a really nice kind of viewing platform for the guests to look out over to the animals with. So yeah, we'll go ahead and do it like this. Yeah, there we go. We have got that wall in. We haven't had our Nile monitor babies yet, have we? We've got both vending machines broken down. Our mechanic must have done that research, actually. That's, yeah. Is he going to do... Oh, he has just a one level. Okay, that's good. Let's take you, actually, off that, Bob. And I think what we will do is put him onto more barriers, because within barriers as well, what we do want to get to is we do want things like the electric, the one-way glass and the thick glass in particular, so we do need to research all of this. So let's get him researching barriers. Now I've got the themes that I wanted for some of the next builds that we'll do in the next episode. And do we have any babies? Not yet. She's nearly there. She must be by now. Okay, so coming back to here, now you can see this is probably a very clear escape point. Oh, we didn't put in the keeper gate after all that. Right, so let's go back in and put in our habitat gate. So we'll just put that in nicely there, so that gives access. And then what I am going to do is go into animal trading. We're going to select all of our black-tailed prairie dogs, and we're going to move them into this habitat. Now, I will change the name to their name, so that we've got that nice and organised for when we want it. And yeah, let's see where we get to. Now, this is far bigger than they actually need, but what I am going to do is fill it with a massive rock sculpture in the middle, which is going to take away a lot from their navigatable land area, because I don't think that they'll be able to climb up all of it. So here comes the janitor and the vet, and they're going to drop them in right on top of each other. There we go. Let's just click on one of them. Now if we go to habitat, as mentioned, they actually, interestingly, they actually can't climb out of there. I thought they would be able to. But I think what we will do is put a rock in front of it anyway. What I wanted to do is show you, there's even a gap here. They can blatantly squeeze through there, but apparently not. What I did want to show you was what happens when an animal can escape. And what that is you get a big red warning over the area that they can escape from. So always make sure you check that once you've got your habitat set up. But it looks like we're all right for now, so we can come and detail that afterwards. So then let's, as always, pause the game and have a little look. So we have got way... I've massively overdone this habitat. In fact, it's so big, I'm contemplating now actually making it smaller. Okay, so I have just made it a fair bit smaller, and it's still a lot more than they need, but obviously with babies that's going to increase, and as soon as we start putting rocks and foliage in this, that is going to go down. So I'm quite happy actually with how that is now. But let's just touch on the hard shelter. So I mean, I will come round and do all of the plant coverage, and actually they're happy on terrain even like this, so we could just... This could be your habitat. In fact, there's no plants needed, no rocks. You could just leave it like this. Add the shelter and the food plate and you're done. But no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do all of that in a detail in time lapse because we talked about it last time. But let's just have a little talk about hard shelter. So if we come into habitat and let's filter by... So if we come into habitat, and I've already put the black-tailed prairie dog filter on, so I know we're only getting stuff that is relevant to them. So there are two ways that they can sleep, essentially. One is basic shelter, and there are all of these blueprints available when you first load into Planet Zoo. I mean, these are way too overkill for a black-tailed prairie dog. You can probably get away with something like this. A very small shelter like that would be all that's needed for a black-tailed prairie dog, and you could put it here and then add bedding to it. So you could use a blueprint, you could use construction items, build them literally a house or a little shelter yourself. That, you know, go right ahead. That is absolutely feasible. Or you can even use rocks. And all they really need is walls and a ceiling, and then some of the habitat bedding that you will find in this menu here. So that's all they need to have their hard shelter. So I'll show you what I mean with a few rocks here. So I'm going to place this one down. I'm going to use X with angle snap on, and we're going to tip this up so it's vertical. And then we'll just use these controls to move it back into place. I would add, once you've done this, if you want to go back to normal move, you can by clicking this or just clicking M. It will take you back to the regular surface move. But we're going to use this for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to turn off angle snap actually now. And we're going to position this rock. I don't mind it spilling over because I am going to essentially line these walls with rock. So it's going to look quite cool like that when we come to it. We'll have our little edge here, so let's click yes on that. Let's go across here and we'll have another one this side. And I'm lining this up to this panel because I'll show you a technique in a second whereby we can get a little window into that panel, which is pretty cool. So we'll just line that up with the edge there like that, and what we're getting is basically a little cave. So yeah, that'll do. I will tidy this up in a minute, but then within here, what we can do is come into habitat and we can add in bedding. Now it doesn't matter if you add in large or small. Obviously large animals won't be able to sleep on small, so you have to think about it for larger animals. But for small animals, it's, yeah, you can kind of use a mixture of both if you want to, and they'll still be able to sleep in this area. So yeah, we'll just do it like that, and that should be fine. We're going to be careful we're not going too far into the barrier. Let's just come back to the barrier. So if we go to edit barrier, once we've clicked on it, we've got this segment highlighted. And then in here, there are various different options. We can change this to glass. Now we haven't yet researched one-way glass, so we can't do that, but we can change it to glass. So let's do that. I'm going to change the bottom actually. We can edit the bottom and let's just bring that back up to ground level because that looked super duper weird. But what that gives us, and now we can change the option here back to flat top if we wanted to, which is usually what I default to. What that gives us is this nice little sneaky window into this little cave area. And as soon as we have researched one-way glass, I would upgrade this to give them a little bit more privacy. But yeah, for now, that will do. And then if we click back on the prairie dogs, we'll need to click play. You can see when we come here, it says hard shelter 100%. So there's more than enough hard shelter to look after all of these prairie dogs just with that one little cave. Now I will go ahead and upgrade some of these other sections. So we'll go back into edit barrier. We can see the bottom again needs editing here. So let's change that. We'll just click away from it. And yeah, we'll snap this back up to ground height. Slightly weird what has happened there. Make sure that is nice and smooth. And then we're going to add it in back into the glass again. So again, we've got a little window here. So when the guests kind of walk up here, they've got a couple of different access points that they can start to look at the prairie dogs from. I'll do exactly the same thing over here as well. So we've got a nice little window there. I think just having those three will do. And then they've obviously got the nice walkway there. Ooh, we're on fast speed. Oh my goodness, what is going on? River Nile monitors expecting offspring. Do we let me just check the animal status here. We have got 2 pregnant Nile monitors, which means we're going to have a lot of babies in there. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. As always, please let me know your suggestions for the prairie dogs in the comments. However, I'm obliged to because I'm a massive fan of this, but I'm going to change this male to big ants And anyone who has seen the YouTube channel Urban Rescue Ranch will know what I'm talking about, but I can't resist. I have to have big animals in my zoo. But please let me know name suggestions for the 3 other girl prairie dogs. I'd love to give them some suitably funny names. Let's keep an eye on our Nile monitors because that is going to be pretty mental when they pop. Now, of course, we've got these animals in. We do not want to forget to put our vet onto research for them. So let's immediately go ahead and place the vet on that so that we can start unlocking some of these enrichment items. I don't think they... oh, they do like the sprinkler. So we have got that one, which we unlocked from researching the Nile monitors. But there is nothing else. So we definitely need to get those. And then as well with the prairie dogs, we do have the options. There's different feeding plates for them versus the Nile monitors. So we have the option for this feeding platform. So we could place this in on some rocks, which is probably what I'm going to do in a little detailing time lapse now, as I think we are ready for it. Now we are an awfully long way away from the main zoo here, so I think I'm going to have to place a little keeper hut and power source, which will be temporary placement until we build in around this. But half the reason why it's so spaced out is because it's very easy to get really cramped in very quick in a zoo, and I think it's really a good idea to kind of slow that down and space it out and detail in between, and it will feel a lot more natural to you. Obviously it depends what style you want to go for, but like I said, I have got a plan for this, so we will be coming in and detailing up around this entrance a lot in future episodes. Big food and drinks court here, train station here, gift shop as well on this corner. All of that is going to be accessed here before they come into this first enclosure with the prairie dogs. But for now, what I will do is go ahead and finish off this enclosure with all of the things we talked about last week. So checking terrain, which is already fine, and plant coverage, but we'll be adding in lots of rocks and plants and the enrichment items as we research them and unlock them. I'll also be going around with this barrier and cladding them in rocks, so just to talk about that before we do it, but just want to align to surface and use these cladding rocks to hide it. And it's just a nice way to hide some of this barrier, which I think we'll do in a lot of places here. And we'll also do some detailing around the path area here as well, just to keep the guests happy. So I will jump into that now and I'll be right back. Okay, so there we have it, and over the course of me recording that, we have had prairie dog babies, we've got an influx of Nile monitor babies. We're going to have to do some animal management at the start of the next episode, so watch out for that next time. And we'll go into contraceptives and how to make sure you don't have a complete overload of offspring. But these little baby prairie dogs are just absolutely adorable. Oh, look at them. I mean, he doesn't even fit in the water thing to have a drink. It's incredibly cute. They are absolutely tiny. But really liking how this habitat has turned out. So we've just sunk a load of rocks. I used the rock cladding sunk right down into the ground to give us some interesting shapes, because they're slightly rough on the top. So if you sink them right down, you don't get these square shapes. You get this kind of nice rock. You can then blend into the sand underneath it. I've used a lot of the X advanced move to kind of slope some of these rocks, particularly all the way around the edge, all of this cladding around the edge, and we have literally clad the entire thing. So in fact, we don't even need a barrier now. We could convert all of this to null barrier, apart from these glass sections, obviously, where we still want the glass here for the guests to look in. But we could convert it all to null because there are literally rocks the entire way round, and really liking this little cave as well. It's very cute. I put a little herb scent marker in here to try and encourage them in, because they are just going in the burrow if they want to sleep. That's kind of their default place to go. And actually just one point with the little educational speaker here. Goodness knows what those guests would do. I'm just going to sink that back into the wall very slightly so it's poking out, because then it's completely hidden. They're quite ugly. If I could hide the donation boxes I would as well, but it's less easy. Less easy because they're so big without creating huge things around them, so I think we'll leave them like that. And we do need the mechanic to come and repair these barriers, but yeah, I think it's come out pretty well. The kind of change in height down from here up towards the back, I smoothed out a lot of this terrain at the back here, so you get this kind of gradual slope, which I think has given a nice effect. 3 little windows for them to look through, and then we have just detailed up all the way around the front here. You can get lots of signs for lots of animals, so have a look for them if you're creating signs for your habitats. And yeah, I really like how that one's just come out. This is the aquatic stained wood wool behind it, which you can change the colour of, which is one of the best pieces in the whole game. Like, I'd really worth getting the aquatic pack just for this one wool piece, I have to say, because it's so diverse. I like the way the little prairie dog's sitting on top of it. And then yeah, we've just mixed in lots of foliage all the way around. Because I have now researched the conservation pack as well, I've got these nice benches and bins, which I'm going to use as the bog standard zoo bins, except for when we're in themed areas. But yeah, pleased with how it's all come out, really. And then I've used little logs here to divide up these bits where the path divides, so it gives us a kind of boundary to that and covers up those slight tearing within the green grass. You could, of course, use construction floor pieces as well, just to paste over the whole thing so you can't see those grass bits, but I've opted for this, which gives us quite a nice barrier between the guests wanting to see the prairie dogs and those just walking down the main path here. But there we go, that's the prairie dogs. Incredibly cute, incredibly cute. And we have researched them fully, I would add, on the vets, because this has taken me so long to detail. So again, we've got all of the enrichment items now, like these little tunnels here that they can go through. We've got tennis balls all over the place for them to play with. Watermelon food feeders. Yeah, it's come together nicely. Quite pleased with that. And back over in the Nile Hunters, you can see there's so many of them. There's so many of them. It's like actual madness. Who's this, Nigel? Yeah, you've got a lot of babies. If we just click on the barriers, you can see here we've got 13 offspring at the moment. And the trouble with this is, as well, if we just go back to Nigel, is they're now kind of running out of space. You'll see their welfare is absolutely fine, so there's not a problem. Guests aren't going to complain at this. But we can't have any more than 13 babies. So at the start of the next episode, I'm going to go into a little bit on animal management and how you control that. So yeah, watch out for that. But that is going to be all for today. So if you have enjoyed the episode, like, comments and shares are really appreciated. Please do let me know your name suggestions for the rest of our prairie dogs. In addition to, obviously, Big Outs we have here. Do go and check out the Urban Rescue Ranch. It's one of my favourite YouTube channels ever. Hilarious. Honourable mention again to Big Outs. Let me know suggestions for the other prairie dogs. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you again next time. Bye bye.